Before we start, a quick but important note. This presentation is for informational and educational purposes only. The world of test prep isn't one size fits all, and the strategies discussed here are based on our experience and data analysis. Your individual success will depend on your unique learning style, effort, and circumstances. We're not guaranteeing a 1600, but we are giving you the clearest, most honest roadmap to help you achieve your personal best. Meet Sarah. For 6 months, she lived on Khan Academy. 300 hours logged. She ground through every single level 4 math problem. She memorized every grammar rule. And she took all 8 official practice tests. Her score jumped from a 1250 to a 1480 in practice. She walked into the testing center feeling like a machine. Now meet Alex. His parents, terrified of him missing out on his dream school, dropped $6,000 on a premium tutoring package. The tutor was a charismatic Ivy League grad who promised insider secrets and a guaranteed 200-point increase. Alex felt the crushing weight of that investment every time he sat down to study. Both Sarah and Alex wanted the exact same thing, a life-changing score. But on the day the scores were released, one of them was celebrating, and the other was staring at their computer screen in disbelief, their stomach sinking. The question isn't just which one succeeded. The real question is why. And the answer is the entire secret to conquering the SAT. This decision, free versus paid, feels like the most important choice you'll make in high school. And it's a choice shrouded in myths, marketing hype, and a whole lot of parental anxiety. We're talking about a test that can unlock hundreds of thousands of dollars in scholarship money, or slam the door on your dream college. You're told that you have to get a great score, but nobody gives you a straight answer on the best way to do it. You see friends using tutors and their scores go up. You hear about the miracle of Khan Academy and how it's the great equalizer. You're drowning in options, and the fear of making the wrong choice is paralyzing. Do you spend a fortune on a promise? Or do you trust a free tool and risk being left behind? This isn't just about studying. It's about investing your 2 most precious resources, your time and your family's money. And if you invest them in the wrong strategy, you don't get a refund. You just get a score you're stuck with. That's why we're making this video. This is the definitive showdown. Khan Academy versus private tutoring. The free, officially partnered, data-driven platform against the hyper-expensive, personalized, concierge experience. And we are going to tear them both apart piece by piece so you can see exactly what you're getting and what you're not. We're not just comparing price tags. That's the easy part. We're going deep. We're analyzing the learning science behind each method. We're talking about accountability, strategy, pacing, content mastery, and the one thing nobody ever talks about, the psychological impact. We've spent years analyzing the score reports of thousands of students who have gone down both paths. We've seen the spectacular successes and the catastrophic failures. And today we're sharing everything we've learned. By the time this video is over, the confusion will be gone. You will have a simple, powerful framework to know with 100% certainty which path is right for you, your learning style, and your goals. You are going to learn the 3 specific types of students who are almost guaranteed to waste their money on a private tutor. We'll show you the hidden trap inside Khan Academy's personalized practice that actually holds motivated students back. You'll also discover the single most powerful feature on the platform that 9 out of 10 students completely ignore, a feature that can be more valuable than 10 hours of tutoring. And for those of you considering a tutor, I'm going to give you the one killer question you must ask them before you even think about paying. This one question, which takes 30 seconds to ask, will instantly reveal whether they are a genuine expert or just a charismatic fraud who memorized a few tricks. This isn't just another comparison video. This is your master plan for conquering the SAT without wasting a minute of your time or $1 of your money. Because let's be honest, the problem isn't a lack of information. The problem is a lack of clarity. The internet is filled with so-called gurus, selling you miracle cures. Tutoring companies use high-pressure sales tactics on worried parents. The College Board promotes its free tool. But is it really enough to compete with students who have access to elite resources? The game feels rigged. But it's not about finding a secret trick or a magic bullet. It's about understanding the fundamental mechanics of the test and the fundamental mechanics of your own brain. The SAT doesn't just test your knowledge of algebra or comma rules. It tests your executive functioning, your emotional regulation under pressure, your strategic thinking, and your ability to manage a grueling 3-hour mental marathon. A great prep system, whether it's free or paid, has to address all of those things. It's not enough to just do practice problems. You have to do the right practice in the right way with the right feedback targeted at your specific weaknesses. We're not just talking about content gaps like not knowing the difference between who and whom. We're talking about structural weaknesses like pacing deficiencies on the reading section, question type blindness in the math no calculator, or a tendency to make careless errors when you're under fatigue in the final module. These are the things that separate a good score from a great one, and both Khan Academy and tutoring claim they can solve these problems. But they do it in radically different ways with radically different trade-offs. So let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about the promise of free. The College Board and Khan Academy have created what is, on paper, the most revolutionary test prep tool ever made. It's accessible to everyone, it's powered by your own past test results, and it costs $0. So, is it the perfect solution? Is it truly the great equalizer they claim it is? Let's pull back the curtain and look at what Khan Academy does brilliantly. And then we'll expose its single biggest, most dangerous flaw that can trap even the most hardworking students in a cycle of frustration. First, let's give credit where it is overwhelmingly due. Khan Academy isn't just a good platform, it's a revolutionary one. Its very existence is a testament to a powerful, noble idea, that a world-class education should be free for anyone, anywhere. And when it comes to the SAT, they put their money where their mouth is. They partnered directly with the College Board, the creators of the SAT, to become the official free prep resource. This isn't a small detail. This is the whole ballgame. It means that when you're practicing on Khan Academy, you are not working with knockoff, SAT-style questions that some other company cooked up. You are working with the real deal, retired official SAT questions, the exact same DNA, the same logic, the same tricky wording you will face on test day. This access alone is worth its weight in gold. Before Khan Academy, getting your hands on this volume of real practice material would have cost you hundreds of dollars in books. Now it's available with a single click. And the system they built around it is, on the surface, a masterpiece of educational technology. You start by taking a full-length diagnostic test. It's brutal, it's long, but it's a necessary evil. Then the algorithm gets to work. It crunches your data, analyzes every single wrong answer, and spits out a personalized study plan. Says, okay, you're weak in quadratic equations and dangling modifiers. Here are the lessons. Here are the practice sets. Go. As you work, it's a constant stream of positive reinforcement. You earn energy points. You watch your skill levels go from familiar to proficient to mastered. Little progress bars fill up. Feels fantastic. Feels like you're building something, like you're conquering the test one brick at a time. The platform essentially takes this mountain of a test and breaks it down into hundreds of bite-sized, manageable skills. And for each one, there's an article to read, a video to watch, and a quiz to take. It is a vast, interconnected library of knowledge, available 24/7, tailored specifically to your weaknesses. It is, without a doubt, the single greatest repository of free SAT content ever created. It has leveled the playing field in a way that nothing before it ever could. And if you are a self-motivated, disciplined student who just needs to fill in a few content gaps, Khan Academy might be all you ever need. It's a phenomenal tool, but a tool is only as good as the person wielding it. And a map is useless if you don't know how to read it. This is where we have to talk about the danger. The single biggest flaw in the Khan Academy system isn't a bug or a missing feature. It's the very nature of the platform itself. It's a flaw that's invisible to most students, and it creates an illusion of progress that can be absolutely devastating to your score and your confidence. Here's the problem. Khan Academy is brilliant at telling you what you got wrong. It is terrible at telling you why you got it wrong. Let me say that again. Tells you what, but it cannot diagnose the why. And in that gap lies the entire difference between a 1200 and a 1500. Think of it like this. Imagine going to the doctor. You get a blood test and the results come back. The report, the data, says your cholesterol is dangerously high. Khan Academy is that blood test. It gives you the data. It tells you, you missed 8 out of 11 questions on Heart of Algebra. It has identified the problem. Then, Khan Academy does what a good but basic doctor might do. It hands you a generic pamphlet. The pamphlet is titled, How to Lower Your Cholesterol, and it has tips like, eat more vegetables, and exercise regularly. This is the little explanation box that pops up after you miss a question. It's a well-written, technically correct explanation of how to solve that specific problem. You read it, you understand it, you nod your head and say, ah, okay, I get it now. But what's missing? The diagnosis. The real doctor, the great doctor, doesn't just hand you a pamphlet. They sit you down and ask questions. Tell me about your diet. What do you eat for breakfast? Do you snack late at night? How much do you sleep? Are you under a lot of stress? They're not just looking at the what, the high cholesterol. They're digging for the why. Is it a genetic predisposition? Is it a high-stress job causing you to eat poorly? Are you misunderstanding what a healthy food actually is? Khan Academy can't do that. It can't ask you questions. It can't understand your unique thought process. It sees you made a mistake on a quadratic equation problem. Doesn't know why. Did you make a simple calculation error because you were rushing? Did you forget the formula entirely? Did you misunderstand what the question was actually asking for? Or, and this is the most critical one, did you fall for a trap answer that was specifically designed by the test makers to catch students who think a certain way? The platform has no way of knowing. So it just gives you the pamphlet, the standard explanation. And here's the trap. You, the hardworking student, read the explanation and it makes sense. You do a few more practice problems of the exact same type and you get them right. The progress bar fills up. The system declares you have mastered the skill. You feel a rush of accomplishment. But you haven't actually fixed the root problem. You haven't addressed the why. You haven't fixed the underlying tendency to rush, or the conceptual misunderstanding, or the vulnerability to that specific type of trap. You've just learned to recognize one specific presentation of a problem. You've put a band-aid on a bullet wound. Let me tell you about a student, we'll call her Maya. Maya was the perfect Khan Academy user. She was diligent, smart, and logged 2 hours every single day for 3 months. She meticulously worked her way through her personalized plan. She mastered skill after skill. Her dashboard was a beautiful sea of fully leveled, completed categories. By all metrics the platform could provide, she was ready. She went in to take her next full-length practice test, confident she was going to see a massive 150-point jump. Her score went up by 10 points. 10. She was completely crushed. And she couldn't understand why. The system told her she was ready. The truth is, Maya had become an expert at the game of Khan Academy. She learned pattern recognition. She learned how to solve the specific problems the platform fed her, in the way it fed them to her. But when she faced a real test, the College Board presented those same concepts in slightly different wrappers. They used different phrasing, combined 2 skills into one question, and laid out new, clever traps. Because her underlying strategic thinking hadn't changed, she fell for them all over again. She hadn't learned the skill. She had just memorized the pamphlet. This is the cycle of frustration. You grind for hours, the platform tells you you're improving, but your score stays stuck. It's because you're operating with incomplete information. You're focusing on the what, the content, without ever diagnosing the why, your personal strategic weaknesses. Khan Academy is an incredible library, but it doesn't provide the librarian. It gives you all the ingredients in the world, but it can't teach you how to be a chef. It can't teach you the art of test-taking, timing, strategy, anxiety management, and most importantly, how to think like the people who write the test. So if Khan Academy's biggest flaw is its inability to diagnose the why behind your mistakes, how do you fix it? How do you turn this fire hose of information into a focused laser beam of score improvement? It comes down to a concept the most elite test prep coaches call the error log fallacy. And in the next part, I'm going to show you why the way 99% of students review their mistakes is actively hurting their score. And the simple, powerful 3-question method you must use instead. So let's talk about the error log fallacy. It sounds fancy, but it's a simple, destructive trap that almost every single student falls into. It's the belief that the simple act of tracking your mistakes will somehow, through osmosis, make you better. It won't. In fact, it's often worse than doing nothing at all because it gives you a completely false sense of progress. Think about it. What does the average hardworking student do after taking a 4-hour practice test? They grade it. They see a sea of red marks. They feel that familiar sting of disappointment. And then they begin the review process. They pull up their test, look at question number 7, which they got wrong. They look at the answer key. The correct answer was C. They think, C. Of course. Why didn't I pick C? They might read the little 1-paragraph explanation in the back of the book, nod their head and say, okay, that makes sense now. Then they move on to question number 12. Rinse and repeat for all 37 questions they missed. They close the book, feeling like they've done their due diligence. They've reviewed their mistakes. But what did they actually accomplish? Almost nothing. Because a week later, when they face a similar question, they make the exact same type of error. Why? Because looking at the right answer after the fact is like looking at the answers to a crossword puzzle you couldn't solve. It provides a momentary flash of recognition, not a deep, lasting understanding. Your brain says, "Oh yeah, I see that now," but it hasn't actually forged the new neural pathways required to solve that problem on its own next time. You haven't fixed the root cause of the problem. You've just put a band-aid on a symptom. This is passive learning at its worst, and it's the single biggest reason students get stuck at the same score for months, taking test after test with no improvement, feeling dumber and more demoralized each time. The way out of this cycle, the system used by students who see those dramatic 100 and 200-point jumps, is to stop just reviewing and start interrogating. You need to become a detective for your own mistakes. And to do that, you use a simple but profoundly powerful 3-question method for every single question you get wrong. Not just the ones you guessed on, but every single one. Here's question 1. Why specifically did I get this wrong? And "I didn't know it" is not a specific answer. That's a lazy excuse. You have to get brutally honest and categorize the error. Was it a content gap? Meaning, you literally did not know a piece of information like the formula for the volume of a cylinder or the rule about subject-verb agreement with collective nouns. Was it a misread? You read the question too fast and missed the word "not," or you thought it asked for the perimeter when it asked for the area. Was it a calculation error? A dumb mistake where you typed 2 plus 2 into the calculator and somehow got 5. It happens. Was it a conceptual misunderstanding? You know the grammar rule for commas, but you fundamentally misapplied it. You thought you understood how to factor a quadratic, but you actually don't. Or was it a time pressure error? You knew how to do it, but the clock was ticking down, you panicked and you rushed. Finally, was it a trap answer? You fell for a deliberately misleading answer choice that the test makers designed to catch students who were moving too quickly or only had a superficial understanding of the concept. You must identify the true reason, because you can't fix a problem if you don't correctly diagnose it. A doctor can't treat a patient if they don't know if it's a broken bone or a bacterial infection. The treatment is entirely different. It's the same here. Once you have your diagnosis, you move to question 2. What specifically will I do to prevent this exact mistake from happening again? This is where you create an actionable plan. This moves you from passive recognition to active prevention. Your answer here must be a concrete action, not a vague intention like, "I'll be more careful." That's useless. If your error was a content gap, you didn't know the cylinder volume formula, your action is, "I will create a digital flashcard for V equals pi r superscript 2h, and I will review it every morning for 1 week." If it was a misread, you missed the word "not," your action is, "From now on, every time I see a question with a capitalized word like not or except, I will physically circle it with my pencil before I even read the answer choices." If it was a calculation error, your action is, "I will write down every single step of my math, no matter how simple, and use the calculator to check even basic arithmetic." If it was a conceptual misunderstanding about commas, your action is, "I will go to Khan Academy, find the section on comma usage, watch the instructional video, and do 10 practice problems until I score 100%. Do you see the power in this? You are creating a specific, targeted prescription for every single error. You are building a system brick by brick that makes it nearly impossible to make that same mistake twice. This leads us to the final and most important question. This is the one that separates the 1,300 scores from the 1,550 scores. Question 3 is, how can I practice this one specific skill in isolation? Think of a pro basketball player who misses a critical free throw. What do? Do they just play more full basketball games, hoping they'll get another chance to take a free throw? Of course not. They go to the gym, stand at the free throw line, and shoot 500 free throws. They isolate that one specific skill and drill it until it becomes automatic, unconscious muscle memory. That's what you have to do with the SAT. The error log fallacy keeps you stuck playing full 4-hour games over and over. The 3-question method tells you to go to the gym. If you got a question wrong because you struggled with systems of equations, your job isn't to just take another full practice test and hope you see another one. Your job is to go find a worksheet or an online quiz with 20 systems of equations problems and do them all back to back to back. This is where a free resource like Khan Academy becomes your superpower. It's designed for this. You can specifically drill interpreting linear functions, or parallel structure, or data inferences. You can take that skill you identified as a weakness in question 1, and you can relentlessly drill it until it becomes a strength. This is the difference. The old way, see a mistake, get a vague sense of understanding and hope it sticks. The new way, diagnose the precise failure point, create a concrete prevention strategy, and then drill that specific skill into submission. One path leads to stagnation and frustration. The other leads to real, measurable, and rapid improvement. It turns every single mistake you make not into a source of disappointment, but into a golden opportunity, a specific, actionable data point that tells you exactly what to do next to raise your score. So now that you have the system to turn every mistake into a score increase, where do you find the right mistakes to make? The truth is, most students are practicing with the wrong materials, and it's sabotaging their progress in a way they can't even see. In the next part, I'll expose the critical difference between official and unofficial practice tests, and why using the wrong one is like training for the Olympics by playing pickup basketball at the local park. It's a recipe for disaster, because that pickup game, it has different rules. The court is a weird size, the rim is a little lower, and the other players aren't playing to win, they're playing to make you think you need to hire them as a coach. This is the single most important, most misunderstood concept in all of test prep: the difference between official and unofficial practice tests. Get this wrong and you could spend hundreds of hours studying and hundreds or even thousands of dollars, only to see your score go nowhere or even drop on test day. So let's draw a bright, clear line in the sand. On one side, you have official practice materials. These are the gold standard. They are the Word of God. They are created by the College Board, the very organization that designs and administers the SAT. This includes the full-length practice tests available on their Blue Book app, the practice questions on their website, and crucially, every single question you will ever find on the official Khan Academy SAT platform. That's it. That's the entire list. On the other side of the line is everything else. Literally everything. The practice tests in the back of a Princeton review book. The ones from Kaplan or Barron's. The online free SAT quiz you found on some random website. These are all unofficial. They are designed by third-party companies, not the College Board. And this is where the game gets rigged. You see, these companies have a fundamental conflict of interest. Their goal isn't just to help you prepare for the SAT. Their primary goal is to convince you that you need their help. And what's the most effective way to do that? To make you feel inadequate. To make you panic. Here's the playbook. A student, let's call her Sarah, decides to start her SAT prep. She buys a popular, well-known test prep book from a big-name company. She takes the first practice test inside. She gets crushed. Her score is a 1250, 100 points lower than she was hoping for. She feels defeated. The questions felt confusing, overly complicated, and tricky in ways she couldn't quite put her finger on. The math problems had weird, convoluted setups. The reading passages were dense and boring, with questions that seemed to have 2 or 3 plausible answers. Her confidence shattered. She thinks, wow, the SAT is way harder than I thought. I can't do this on my own. So, she convinces her parents to sign her up for that company's multi-thousand-dollar tutoring package. She spends the next 3 months working with their tutors, using their strategies, and taking their proprietary practice tests. And slowly, her scores on their tests start to climb. 1250 becomes 1320. 1320 becomes 1380. 1380 becomes 1450. She's feeling great. The system works. She's learned the tricks. She's ready. Then the real test day comes. She sits down, opens her Blue Book app, and begins the actual SAT. And a strange feeling creeps in. The questions, they feel different. They're not necessarily easier, but the logic is different. The way the questions are phrased, the structure of the wrong answer choices, the specific reasoning skills being tested, it all feels slightly off from what she's been practicing. The tricks she learned don't seem to apply. She finishes the test feeling uncertain, and a few weeks later, her official score comes back, a 1310. She's devastated. All that time, all that money, and her score is barely higher than where she started. What happened? Sarah was a victim of the unofficial test trap. That first test she took wasn't designed to be an accurate measure of her abilities. It was a marketing tool. It was made artificially difficult and logically inconsistent with the real SAT for one reason: to scare her into buying their product. The questions weren't hard in the same way the SAT is hard. They were hard in a way that was unique to that company's style. Her score improved on their subsequent tests because she wasn't getting better at the SAT. She was getting better at taking their tests. She trained for the Olympics by only ever playing pickup basketball in that one weird gym. When she finally got to the real Olympic court, the rules were different and she was completely unprepared. This isn't a rare story. It happens to tens of thousands of students every single year. These unofficial tests are notorious for writing questions that violate the core principles of the real SAT. The real SAT prides itself on having only one single, unambiguously 100% correct answer for every question. The wrong answers are demonstrably wrong for clear logical reasons. Unofficial tests, on the other hand, are often full of questions with ambiguous wording or multiple kinda right answers. This is poison for a student's prep. It trains you to second-guess yourself, to look for convoluted tricks, and to argue with the test, all habits that will destroy your score on the real thing. Think about the math section. The Real Digital SAT is laser-focused on a core set of concepts, primarily algebra and advanced math. It tests these concepts in very specific, predictable ways. Unofficial tests often throw in obscure, out-of-scope topics or create multi-step, Frankenstein-like problems that don't resemble anything the College Board would ever write. You end up wasting precious time learning math that won't even be on the test. This is the hidden, almost magical advantage of Khan Academy. Because of their official partnership with the College Board, every single question, every drill, every practice test is the real deal. It's pure, uncut, official material. When you practice on Khan Academy, you are marinating your brain in the exact logic, style, and content of the real SAT. You are developing the correct mental instincts. You're not just learning math and grammar. You're learning the language of the test maker. This is an advantage that cannot be overstated, and it is completely free. Now let's swing back to paid tutoring. Does this mean all tutors are scamming you with bad tests? Absolutely not. But it creates the single most important question you must ask before hiring any tutor or company. What practice materials do you use? If the answer is, we use our own proprietary test that we've developed over 20 years, you should run for the hills. That is a giant red flag. A world-class, high-quality tutor knows that their own materials will always be inferior to the official ones. Their value isn't in creating their own fake tests. Their value is in how they teach you to deconstruct and master the official tests. A great tutor will have you download the official Bluebook app and work exclusively from those tests. They will use Khan Academy. They will use the official question bank from the College Board. They are your guide to the real material, not the purveyor of a cheap imitation. So the rule is simple and non-negotiable. Your practice and your score predictions should only ever come from official College Board materials. This means the Bluebook exams and Khan Academy. Period. Using an unofficial test to gauge your progress is like using a broken clock to tell time. It's not just inaccurate, it's actively misleading, sending you down a path of wasted effort and false confidence. So now you know the golden rule: only use official tests. Khan Academy gives you this for free. A good tutor insists on it. You've filtered out all the noise and are focused on the one true source of practice. But here's the billion-dollar question the entire test prep industry hopes you never ask. What do you actually do after you finish one? Because simply taking practice tests, even the right ones, is one of the biggest wastes of time in all of SAT prep. In the next part, I'll reveal the 4-step review method that turns a single practice test into 50 points of score improvement, a method most students never learn. So let's perform an autopsy, not on a person but on your SAT score. Because that's what a practice test is. A perfect snapshot of your academic strengths and weaknesses, frozen in time. The average student treats a practice test like a final exam. They take it, they get a score, they feel good or bad about it, and they move on. They might glance at the questions they got wrong, maybe nod and say, "Oh, I see." And then they schedule their next practice test, hoping for a better outcome. This is like a doctor looking at a patient with a broken leg, saying, "Yep, it's broken," and then sending them home without a cast, crutches, or a plan for physical therapy. It's malpractice. The 4-step review method I'm about to share with you treats a practice test not as a performance, but as a treasure map. Every single question you got wrong, every question you guessed on and got right, and every question that took you way too long to answer is an X marking a spot where points are buried. Your job isn't to just find the X's, it's to dig up the treasure. This process, done correctly just once, is more valuable than taking 5 more practice tests blindly. Step 1 is the triage. You need to become an SAT detective investigating an intellectual crime scene. You're going to create a mistake journal, which can be a physical notebook or a simple spreadsheet. Go through your completed practice test question by question, and for every single one that isn't a confident, correct answer, you're going to log it. But you don't just write down the question number. You categorize the error. Every mistake on the SAT falls into one of 3 buckets. Bucket 1, the careless mistake. This is the most infuriating one. You knew how to do the problem, But you bubbled in C instead of B. You solved for X when the question asked for 2X. You read, which of the following is not as which of the following is. These are facepalm moments. You log it, and you specifically write down what kind of careless mistake it was. Misread the question. Calculation error? Bubbling mistake? Be specific. Bucket 2, the content gap. This is the honest mistake. You looked at a question about trigonometry, and your mind went blank. You didn't know the rule for semicolon usage. You couldn't remember the quadratic formula to save your life. There is no shame in this. This is the entire point of the diagnosis. For this bucket, you write down the specific concept you were missing. Not just math, but properties of equilateral triangles, or subject-verb agreement with collective nouns. Bucket 3, the strategy error. This is the most subtle and the most important. You knew the content, you didn't make a careless mistake, but you still got it wrong. Why? Maybe you fell for a classic trap answer that looked tempting. Maybe you spent 5 minutes on a single hard question and had to rush through the last 5, making silly mistakes. Maybe you misunderstood what the reading passage was really implying. This is about how you take the test. Your log should describe the flawed strategy. Fell for a trap answer that used similar wording from the passage, or wasted too much time trying to solve the geometry problem from scratch instead of plugging in the answer choices. This triage process is non-negotiable. You must categorize every single mistake, including lucky guesses. A lucky guess is just a content gap in disguise. By the time you're done, you won't just have a list of wrong answers. You'll have a complete diagnostic report of your own brain. Now for step 2, the root cause analysis. This is where the real detective work begins. For every single mistake you logged in your journal, you are going to ask and answer one question. Why? You have to go deeper than the surface level category. Let's take a careless mistake. You solved for X instead of 2X. Why? Were you rushing because you were low on time? So why were you low on time? Because you spent too long on an earlier question? Okay, now we're getting somewhere. The root cause wasn't just a reading error. It was poor time management. Let's take a content gap. You forgot the formula for the area of a trapezoid. Why? Did you never learn it in the first place? Or did you learn it 2 years ago in geometry and it just fell out of your brain? The solution for these two whys is completely different. One requires learning from scratch. The other requires spaced repetition and review. For a strategy error, this is critical. You fell for a trap answer in the reading section. Why? Did you fail to go back to the text to find direct evidence for your answer? Did you choose an answer that was mostly right but had one wrong word? The SAT is designed with these traps. Identifying the specific type of trap you're falling for is like getting the enemy's playbook. You start to see their tricks from a mile away. You must write down in your own words a full explanation for why you made the mistake and what the correct thought process should have been. You should be able to explain it so clearly that you could teach the concept to someone else. Step 3 is creating your action plan. Your mistake journal is now a customized study guide, a blueprint for your brain. You're going to turn your root cause analysis into a concrete, actionable to-do list. This is where you bridge the gap between knowing what's wrong and actually fixing it. For every careless mistake, you create a process-oriented goal. If you keep solving for the wrong variable, your action item is, for every math problem, I will circle or underline exactly what the question is asking for before I start solving. If you make bubbling errors, your action item is, I will check my bubbling after every single page. For every content gap, you create a learning goal. You didn't know the rules for apostrophes? Your action item is, go to Khan Academy, watch the 3 videos on apostrophe usage, and do 2 of their practice quizzes until I get 100%. You forgot the quadratic formula? Make a flashcard for the quadratic formula and review it 3 times a day for the next week. It has to be specific, measurable, and tied directly to a resource. For every strategy error, you create a practice goal. You keep running out of time on the reading section? For the next 3 days, I will practice 1 reading passage per day with a strict 11-minute timer to improve my pacing. You fall for trap answers? I will complete the inference section on Khan Academy, and for every question, I will physically point to the line in the text that justifies my answer. This action plan is your roadmap to a higher score. It's no longer vague studying. It's targeted, intelligent, and efficient. Which brings us to step 4, targeted drilling. Notice what isn't step 4. Taking another full-length practice test. That would be like a patient with a broken leg running another marathon to see if it's healed. It's insane. Instead, you spend the next 1 to 2 weeks executing your action plan. You don't look at a full test. You spend your time on Khan Academy on your textbooks on specific practice problems, fixing the specific holes you identified in your foundation. You are a surgeon, not a butcher. You are performing precise operations on your weaknesses. Only after you have diligently worked through your action plan and feel confident you've mastered those specific areas do you take another practice test. And when you do, you'll see a score jump. Not because of magic, but because you systematically identified your weaknesses and turned them into strengths. Then you repeat the 4-step process all over again. Each cycle gets you closer to your goal score, building layer upon layer of mastery. So, how does this relate to free versus paid? This entire 4-step autopsy process can be done completely for free. You use the free official practice test from the College Board and the incredible free targeted practice on Khan Academy. Khan Academy is practically built for step 4 of this process. It lets you drill down on the exact skills your mistake journal identified as weak points. If you are self-disciplined, organized, and brutally honest with yourself, you can use this method to achieve a fantastic score without paying a dime. So where does a tutor or a paid course come in? A great tutor acts as your lead detective and your personal trainer. They are an expert at this autopsy process. In step 1, they'll spot patterns in your mistakes that you might miss. They'll say, "I see you made 7 different mistakes, but they all stem from the same root misunderstanding of function transformations." That's an insight that could take you weeks to figure out on your own. In step 2, they push you on your why. They don't let you get away with the lazy answer. They interrogate your thought process until the true root cause is exposed. In step 3, they don't just help you create an action plan. They provide the materials. They have a curated library of the toughest exponent problems or the most confusing modifier placement questions, saving you the time of hunting them down yourself. And in step 4, they provide accountability. It's one thing to write down an action plan. It's another to actually do it every day when you're tired and unmotivated. A tutor ensures you stick to the plan. You're not paying a tutor to teach you the quadratic formula. You can learn that for free on the internet in 5 minutes. You're paying for their expertise in diagnosis, their efficiency in creating a treatment plan, and their ability to hold you accountable to that plan. They accelerate this 4-step cycle dramatically, but the principle is the same. Whether you do it yourself for free or hire a pro to guide you, the path to a 100 or 200-point score increase isn't found in taking more tests. It's found in the brutal, honest, and systematic review of a single one. Now you have the system to diagnose your problems and create a plan to fix them. But a plan is useless without a schedule. How do you fit this targeted drilling into your already chaotic life as a high school student? How much time should you really be spending each day? What does an effective study session even look like? In the next part, I'm going to give you the blueprint for the perfect SAT study week. A schedule so efficient and powerful, it will feel like you've unlocked more hours in the day. Here it is. The schedule that turns chaos into points and transforms overwhelming anxiety into quiet confidence. This isn't just a calendar. It's a system. A machine for building your SAT score brick by brick. The core philosophy is simple but non-negotiable. We work smarter, not just harder. We prioritize focused, high-intensity bursts over long, draining, low-impact sessions. We will alternate between subjects to keep your brain agile, and we will make reviewing our mistakes the single most important thing we do. Forget cramming. This is about building deep, unshakable knowledge. Let's build your week. Monday is math day. Specifically, it's deep dive day. You are not going to do a random assortment of 50 math problems. That's like trying to learn to cook by throwing random ingredients in a pot. Instead, you are going to pick one and only one major math concept you're weak on. Let's say it's functions, or maybe it's circle theorems. You identified this weakness from your last practice test. For the next 60 to 90 minutes, that concept is your entire world. Here's how the session breaks down. First, 25 minutes of learning. This is where Khan Academy is king. You watch their videos on functions. You read their articles. You absorb the theory, the formulas, the core principles. You are not doing problems yet. You are just understanding the why. Next, 50 minutes of targeted practice. You go to the functions section on Khan Academy and you drill. You do problem after problem, focusing only on that one skill. When you get one wrong, you don't just skip it. You stop. You read the explanation. You figure out precisely where your logic broke down. Was it a calculation error? Did you misunderstand the question? Did you forget a formula? You don't move on until you understand that specific mistake. The final 15 minutes are for consolidation. You close Khan Academy, you take out a blank piece of paper, and you write down everything you just learned about functions. Explain the concept to yourself in your own words. Write down the key formulas from memory. This act of recall is what cements the knowledge in your long-term memory. That's it. A powerful 90-minute session. You walk away having mastered a concept, not just having done math problems. Tuesday we switch. It's verbal day. Your brain needs to use a different muscle. Just like on Monday, we're doing a deep dive on a single concept. Maybe it's comma and semicolon rules. Maybe it's understanding command of evidence questions in the reading section. The structure is identical. 25 minutes of learning the rules and strategies from a resource like Khan Academy or a prep book. 50 minutes of targeted, focused practice on just that one question type or grammar rule. And 15 minutes of writing down what you learned from memory. By isolating skills, you build them faster. You're not juggling 10 things at once. You're becoming an expert in one thing at a time. Wednesday is the scramble. Today we mix it up. Your brain has spent 2 days building skills in isolation. Now it needs to learn how to access those skills on demand, just like on the real test. You'll do a 30-minute time section. 15 math questions and 15 writing questions, all mixed together from various topics. You can pull these from a practice test or use Khan Academy's mixed quizzes. The goal here isn't to learn new material. The goal is to practice retrieval, to force your brain to switch from geometry to grammar to algebra in a matter of seconds. After the 30 minutes are up, you spend another 30 minutes carefully reviewing every single question, especially the ones you got right. Why was that the right answer? Could you solve it a faster way? This reinforces the learning from Monday and Tuesday. Thursday is Seek and Destroy Day. This is the day that separates the 1,300 scores from the 1,500 scores. You are going to take your results from Wednesday's scramble, and you are going to focus exclusively on what you got wrong. Did you miss 2 questions on subject-verb agreement? Then today's 60-minute session is a deep dive on that and nothing else. You go back to the learning material, relearn the rules, and then do 30 targeted practice problems. Thursday is about ruthless honesty. It's about facing your weaknesses head-on instead of just practicing what you're already good at. This is where a tutor can be a game changer. They can look at your mistakes from Wednesday and instantly diagnose the root cause, providing a custom-tailored lesson for your Seek and Destroy Day that you might not be able to build for yourself. Friday is for priming. We do not cram. We do not exhaust ourselves the day before the main event. Friday is either a complete rest day or a maximum of 30 to 45 minutes of very light review. Read over your notes from the week. Look at a few of the mistakes you corrected on Thursday. The goal is to walk into Saturday's session feeling sharp, rested, and confident, not burned out. Think of it like a professional athlete resting the day before a big game. Your brain is a muscle. It needs to recover to perform at its peak. Saturday is game day. This is non-negotiable. Every Saturday you take a full-timed proctored practice test, from beginning to end. Put your phone in another room. Use a timer. Take only the official breaks. You must simulate the real experience to build the mental stamina and focus required for a 3-hour exam. This is your weekly diagnostic. It tells you what's working, what's not, and it exposes new weaknesses for the upcoming week. This is your progress report. And that brings us to Sunday. Sunday is the most important day of the week. It's not about taking a test. It's about learning from it. Sunday is autopsy day. You are going to perform a detailed autopsy on yesterday's practice test, and it will likely take you longer to review the test than it took to take it. Here's how. You create a mistake log, a spreadsheet, or a notebook. For every single question you got wrong, you will log it and categorize it. There are 4 main categories of error. 1. A concept gap. You genuinely did not know how to solve the problem. 2. A misread question. You knew the concept but you solved for X when they asked for 2X. A silly but costly mistake. 3. A calculation error. You did 3 times 4 is 7. You knew the process but fumbled the execution. 4. A time management error. You knew how to do it but you rushed and made a mistake, or you never even got to the question. You must be brutally honest in this categorization. Once categorized, you don't just look at the right answer. You redo the entire problem from scratch without a timer until you understand the process perfectly. For the concept gaps, you write down what concept you need to study. And right there you have your plan for next week's Monday and Tuesday deep dives. This Sunday autopsy is the engine of your improvement. It is the single most valuable thing you can do. And this, frankly, is where the biggest gap between free and paid prep appears. You can absolutely do this autopsy yourself with Khan Academy and a prep book. Takes discipline, but it's possible. However, having a great tutor sit with you on Sunday and walk you through this process is like pouring jet fuel on a fire. They will see patterns in your mistakes you would never see yourself. They'll say, look, you missed 3 circle theorem questions. But the real issue isn't the theorems. You're consistently misreading the phrase in terms of pi. That's a level of insight that is incredibly difficult to achieve on your own. They turn your raw data of mistakes into a targeted, actionable battle plan for the week ahead. This weekly system, deep dive, scramble, seek and destroy, prime, perform, and autopsy, creates a powerful feedback loop. Each week, you're not just studying. You're systematically identifying your weakest link, strengthening it, and then finding the next one. You're not just spinning your wheels. You're building. But this perfectly engineered week is only half the story. Because inside each of these study blocks, there's a secret to unlocking superhuman focus. A technique that allows you to get more done in 25 minutes than most people do in 2 hours. It's called the Pomodoro technique. And I know it sounds like a fancy Italian sauce, but this simple method, developed by a university student in the 1980s, is the key to unlocking a state of deep work so profound it feels like a superpower. The entire concept is built on a single terrifying truth about the human brain. We are absolutely terrible at focusing for long periods. Our brains are not designed to sit still for 3 hours and passively absorb information about quadratic equations. They're designed to scan the horizon for threats, seek out novelty, and get a hit of dopamine from the next notification, the next text, the next distraction. This is why starting an SAT study session feels impossible. You sit down, open Khan Academy, and you're faced with a mountain. A literal digital mountain of skills, articles, videos, and quizzes. The sheer scale of it is paralyzing. Your brain, in an act of self-preservation, screams, "Abort! Let's go watch a video about a guy building a swimming pool with his bare hands instead." And so you procrastinate. You tell yourself you'll start in 5 minutes. You just need to check one thing. And suddenly 2 hours have vanished. The Pomodoro technique shatters this paralysis by making the mountain disappear. It tricks your brain into starting by lowering the barrier to entry so ridiculously low, it's almost impossible to say no. Here's how it works. You take your massive, terrifying task like study for the SAT, and you break it into a single concrete action. Not study math, but complete the Khan Academy practice quiz on circle theorems. Then you set a timer for 25 minutes. For those 25 minutes, and this is the non-negotiable sacred rule, you do nothing else. Your phone is in another room. All other browser tabs are closed. No music with lyrics. It is just you and the circle theorems. You are a surgeon, and this is the operation. When that timer goes off, you stop. Even if you're mid-sentence, you stop. And you put a check mark on a piece of paper. You've completed one Pomodoro. Now you take a mandatory 5-minute break. And I mean a real break. Get up. Stretch. Stare out the window. Do not check your phone. After 5 minutes, your timer goes off again, and you start your next 25-minute sprint. After 4 of these Pomodoros for check marks, you take a longer break, 20 to 30 minutes. This sounds almost insultingly simple, right? But its effect on your brain is profound. First, it obliterates procrastination. Your brain is no longer scared of the 3-hour mountain. It just has to deal with a 25-minute molehill. Anyone can do something for 25 minutes. Second, it creates intense focus. The short, defined time limit manufactures a sense of urgency. It's a race against the clock, which forces you to be efficient and cuts out the mental chatter. Third, and this is the fascinating part, the mandatory breaks are where the real learning happens. Neurologically, your brain uses this downtime to consolidate what you just learned, shifting it from short-term to long-term memory. It's like lifting weights. The muscle growth doesn't happen when you're lifting, it happens when you're resting. Studying is the same. The breaks are not a reward. They are a critical part of the process. So, how does this apply to our free versus paid debate? For the student on the Khan Academy path, the Pomodoro technique isn't just a good idea. It is your entire operating system. It is the rigid structure that the beautiful, chaotic wilderness of Khan Academy desperately needs. Without it, Khan Academy is an endless, overwhelming library. With it, it becomes a precision-guided weapon. You sit down for your scheduled math block. You don't just randomly click around. You say, my mission for the next 4 Pomodoros is to increase my problem-solving and data analysis skill level from 3 to 4. Pomodoro 1. 25 minutes focus solely on the lesson and problems for ratios, rates, and proportions. Timer goes off. 5-minute break. Pomodoro 2, 25 minutes on percentages. Break. Pomodoro 3, 25 minutes on tables, graphs, and charts. Break. Pomodoro 4, a 25-minute mixed review quiz of all three. Long break. You've just accomplished more in 100 minutes of focus work than most students do in an entire afternoon of distracted, half-hearted studying. You have imposed your own structure, your own discipline onto a free resource and made it invaluable. Now let's look at the paid path. What happens when you hire a great tutor? If you pay close attention, you'll realize what you're really paying for is a human Pomodoro timer. A world-class tutor will never ever sit and lecture you for 60 minutes straight. It would be a complete waste of your money and their time. Instead, they instinctively break the session into focus sprints. They'll say, okay, for the next 15 minutes, we are going to master the comma splice. Nothing else exists. They'll teach the concept, drill you with targeted examples, and push you to your limit on that one specific skill. Then just as your brain starts to fatigue, they'll switch gears. Alright, let's take a 5-minute breather, and then hit some geometry. They are managing your cognitive load for you. They are your external accountability. When you're in a session with a great tutor, you can't check your phone. You can't open another tab. They are creating the perfect, distraction-free deep work environment that the Pomodoro technique helps you create for yourself. This is a crucial distinction. On the free path with Khan Academy, you have access to virtually all the necessary information. But you are responsible for creating the structure, for enforcing the focus, for fighting off the distractions. You have to build the discipline of the Pomodoro method yourself. It's a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice. On the paid path, you are outsourcing that discipline. You are paying for an expert to not only deliver the information, but to package it within a hyper-focused, neurologically optimized structure. You're buying focus as a service. So the question isn't just whether you can afford tutoring. It's also an honest assessment of your own ability to create and stick to a demanding deep work ritual. Can you be your own tutor? Can you be the stern, unyielding timer that forces you into the zone? Because whether you pay for it or build it yourself, that focus sprint is the only thing that actually moves the needle on your score. So we've engineered the perfect study week, layering in the core subjects and active recall. And now we've mastered the secret to supreme focus within each of those study blocks. We have the blueprint and the engine. Seems like we have everything we need. But there's a trap. A devastatingly common trap that causes more than 90% of self-studiers to plateau and give up. And it has absolutely nothing to do with how smart you are or how hard you work. It's a psychological pitfall hidden in plain sight, inside every single practice problem you get wrong. And learning to see it is the difference between a 1200 and a 1500. It's called the illusion of understanding. And it is the single greatest threat to anyone studying for the SAT on their own. It's subtle, it's seductive, and it feels exactly like real learning, which is what makes it so dangerous. Let me walk you through it. You're deep in a Khan Academy practice session. You're in the zone. You come across a tricky heart of algebra question. You work through it, you feel pretty good about your answer, you click submit. And it's wrong. That little red X appears. Your heart sinks for a second, but then you click show explanation. And there it is, a clean step-by-step solution. You read through it. You think, okay, I see. I forgot to distribute the negative sign to the second term. That's where I went wrong. Simple mistake. I get it now. You nod, feeling a little wave of relief. You've corrected your error. You've learned something. You move on to the next question, confident that you won't make that mistake again. Except you will. Almost guaranteed. Because what just happened wasn't learning. It was recognition. Your brain didn't forge a new pathway. It just recognized a familiar one. It's the difference between navigating a city with a GPS telling you every single turn, and actually learning the layout of the streets. With the GPS, you'll get to your destination, no problem. You'll recognize the landmarks as you pass them. But the next day, if I take away your phone and ask you to drive the same route, you'll be completely lost. You never actually learned the map. You just followed instructions. Seeing the solution to an SAT problem is exactly like that GPS. It shows you the path of logic and your brain says, yes, this path makes sense. I recognize these steps. But you didn't create the path yourself. You didn't struggle at the intersections. You didn't have to decide whether to turn left or right. The struggle, the moment of uncertainty where you have to retrieve a concept from your own memory and apply it, that is the only moment learning actually occurs. Khan Academy, for all its incredible value, can become an engine for this illusion. Its interface is designed for speed and efficiency. Get it wrong, see the answer, move on. It provides that immediate feedback, that satisfying little dopamine hit of, oh, I get it now, which tricks you into believing you've made progress. You can spend 100 hours on the platform getting hundreds of questions wrong, looking at hundreds of explanations, and your score can stay completely flat. You're just spinning your wheels in the mud of recognition, feeling the engine roar but never actually moving forward. You're building a false confidence based on your ability to understand an explanation, not on your ability to generate a solution. This is where the fundamental difference between free and elite paid prep becomes painfully clear. A great tutor's entire job is to destroy the illusion of understanding. When you get a question wrong with a good tutor, they don't just show you the answer. That would be malpractice. Instead, they do something far more powerful and far more uncomfortable for you. They ask a question. They'll say, okay, walk me through your thinking. What was the very first thing you did? And you're forced to articulate your flawed logic out loud. You have to say, well, I saw the two parentheses, so I just added the terms inside first. And in the very act of saying it, you might realize your own mistake. Oh, you'll say, I was supposed to use FOIL. I see. Notice the difference. You didn't just recognize the right path. You were forced to find it yourself. The tutor didn't give you the map. They just pointed out you were holding it upside down. A tutor creates what educators call desirable difficulty. They prevent you from taking the easy way out. They won't let you just glance at the solution. They force you to wrestle with the problem. They'll ask guiding questions. What does that keyword proportional usually tell us we need to do? Or what other problems have we seen that look like this? They are forcing your brain to do the heavy lifting of retrieval. They are making you practice the skill of calling up the right information from your long-term memory under pressure, which is the entire game on test day. Khan Academy gives you the fish. A good tutor teaches you to fish by forcing you to hold the rod, bait the hook, and sit there in the boat until you get a bite, even if it takes a frustratingly long time. So, does this mean you're doomed without a tutor? That free resources are a trap? Absolutely not. But it does mean you have to become your own tutor. You have to be the one to create that desirable difficulty. You have to be the one to systematically dismantle the illusion of understanding. And you do that with a tool that is more powerful than any software, a wrong answer journal. This isn't just a gimmick. It is the single most effective study technique for a self-prepper. Here is how it works. When you get a question wrong on Khan Academy, you forbid yourself from immediately clicking the explanation. That button is now your enemy. Instead, you get out a simple notebook or open a document. First, you try the problem again from scratch on a clean sheet of paper. Don't even look at your old work. A surprising amount of the time, you just made a silly arithmetic error, and redoing it will fix it. If you get it right the second time, you still write it in your journal. You write the question number and you write down why you made the mistake. Careless error. I dropped a negative sign during distribution. If you still get it wrong the second time, you still don't look at the answer. Now, you go into detective mode. You look at the question and ask yourself, what concept is this testing? Is it quadratic equations? Is it subject-verb agreement? Modifier placement? You then go back to Khan Academy's lesson section or a textbook, and you review the entire concept. Not the single problem, the whole idea. You spend 10 minutes relearning the fundamentals. Then you go back and try the problem a third time. Only after this third attempt, if you are still completely stuck, are you allowed to look at the official explanation. And when you do, you don't just read it and nod. You analyze it. You compare it step by step against your own work. And then you open your journal. This is the magic moment. You write down 3 things. 1. What was the question? Just a quick summary. A word problem about exponential growth. 2. In your own words, why did you get it wrong? Be brutally honest and specific. Don't write, I'm bad at math. Write, I failed to translate the phrase, doubles every 18 months into the correct component of the exponential function. I didn't know how to handle the time variable. 3. What is the specific actionable thing you will do differently next time you see a similar problem? When I see an exponential growth problem, I will immediately write down the standard formula, A equals P times 1 plus R to the power of T, and identify which part of the word problem corresponds to each variable before I try to solve. This process is slow. It is tedious. It is frustrating. It feels 100 times less productive than blazing through 20 practice problems in an hour. But every single entry in that journal represents a brick of true knowledge being laid in your mind. You are forcing yourself to do what a tutor would have forced you to do. Confront your misunderstanding, articulate it, and create a conscious plan to fix it. You are single-handedly defeating the illusion of understanding. You're turning passive recognition into active learning. Most students using free resources will never do this. They will stay on the hamster wheel of getting it wrong, looking at the answer, and telling themselves they get it now. They'll spend months studying and see their scores barely budge, and they will blame the test or the platform or their own intelligence. But the problem isn't the tool, and it's not their brain. It's the process. The choice between free and paid prep is not just about the quality of the material. It's about the structure of the learning environment. Paid tutoring provides an external structure that forces you into the zone of desirable difficulty. Free prep requires you to have the superhuman discipline to build that structure for yourself. But if you can truly commit to something like a wrong answer journal, you can replicate the most important function of a world-class tutor for free. You can transform every mistake from a moment of failure into your most valuable data point. But mastering this learning process is only half the battle. Because even if you know how to learn from your mistakes, you still need a strategy. You need to know what to study, when to study it, and how to allocate your most precious resource, time. And the biggest strategic error that traps students in their score range has to do with a complete misunderstanding of how the SAT is actually built. You see, the SAT isn't a magical test of genius. It's not a random assortment of high school trivia. It is a machine. A meticulously designed, precisely calibrated, and utterly predictable machine. And like any machine, it has a blueprint. The College Board, the company that makes the SAT, literally publishes this blueprint for the entire world to see. They call it the test specifications. And the single biggest mistake students make is studying for the SAT without ever reading the manual for the machine they're trying to beat. Imagine you were hired to build a house. Would you just show up with a pile of lumber and a bucket of nails and start hammering things together? Of course not. You demand the blueprint. You'd need to know that 35% of your work needs to be the foundation, 25% is the framing, 15% is the plumbing, and so on. You would allocate your time and resources based on that blueprint. Doing anything else would be malpractice. Yet, that is exactly how 99% of students study for the SAT. They just do random practice problems, treating a trigonometry question as if it has the same importance as a linear equations question. And that is a recipe for disaster. Let's look at the blueprint for the math section. It's not just math. It's broken down into 4 specific categories, and the weighting is not even close to equal. The first and most important category is called Heart of Algebra. This is the foundation of the house. It covers linear equations, systems of linear equations, and linear inequalities. This one category accounts for 19 out of the 58 math questions. That's 33% of your entire math score. 1/3 of your score comes from your mastery of basic 9th grade algebra. The second category is problem solving and data analysis. This is your ability to be a mathematical detective. It's about using ratios, percentages, and proportions and interpreting data from tables, charts, and graphs. This section contains 17 questions, making up about 29% of your math score. So let's stop right there. Heart of Algebra and problem solving and data analysis. Together, those 2 categories make up 36 out of 58 questions. That is 62% of your entire SAT math score. If you did nothing else but achieve absolute, flawless mastery of just these 2 areas, you would already be scoring well above the national average. Now let's look at the third category, Passport to Advanced Math. This is the stuff that often intimidates students, manipulating complex algebraic expressions, quadratic equations, exponential functions, and other more abstract concepts. This makes up 16 questions, or about 28% of the score. It's significant, but notice it's less important than Heart of Algebra and roughly equal to problem solving. And finally, the fourth category is called Additional Topics in Math. This is the grab bag. It includes geometry, basic trigonometry, and complex numbers. And how many questions are in this entire category? 6. Just 6 questions. That's about 10% of your math score. Now think about how you study. How many hours have you spent wrestling with SOHCAHTOA, or the formula for the volume of a cone? How much anxiety have you felt over imaginary numbers? For most students, it's a lot. They spend a disproportionate amount of time on the additional topics, because those questions feel hard and unfamiliar. They might spend a whole week on trigonometry to prepare for the 1 or 2 questions that might show up, while completely neglecting to drill the 19 questions worth of heart of algebra that form the bedrock of the test. This is the strategic error. Khan Academy, for all its strengths, can fall into this trap. If you take a practice test and you get a geometry question wrong and a linear equation wrong, its algorithm often treats those mistakes as equal. It will recommend practice in both areas, but they are not equal. One of those mistakes is 3 to 4 times more important to your score than the other. A high-level tutor or a premium prep course does the opposite. Their entire curriculum is built around the blueprint. They will not let you touch a trigonometry problem until you can solve a system of linear equations in your sleep. They will force you to spend 60% of your time on the 62% of the test that matters most. They are not just teaching you math. They are teaching you the SAT's version of math. They are acting as your general contractor, ensuring you don't waste time painting the windows before the foundation is even poured. This strategic prioritization is a massive part of what you're paying for. This same principle holds true for the evidence-based reading and writing section. It's not just a vague test of reading comprehension and grammar. It has a blueprint. The reading section tests 2 main skills, each making up about 30% of the questions: information and ideas, which is your ability to locate details and understand the main point, and rhetoric, which is understanding why the author made certain choices with structure and word choice. The writing and language section is even more revealing. It's broken into 2 domains. The first is expression of ideas. This is about logic, flow, and making the author's point stronger. It accounts for 24 questions, or about 55% of the section. The second is standard English conventions. This is pure black and white grammar. Subject-verb agreement, pronoun usage, punctuation like commas, semicolons, and colons. This accounts for 20 questions, making up the other 45%. Think about that. Nearly half of your entire writing and language score comes down to knowing a finite set of about 15 to 20 grammar rules. That's it. These aren't matters of opinion or style. They are rules. You either know the rule for comma splices or you don't. You either know how to use a semicolon correctly or you don't. This is the most learnable, most drillable, and most predictable part of the entire SAT. And yet, where do students struggle? They reread passages over and over, trying to feel out the answer for the expression of ideas questions. They get bogged down in the nuance, while leaving dozens of points on the table by not having systematically memorized the concrete grammar rules. This brings us to one of the most powerful concepts in productivity and strategy: the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. The idea is that in many systems, 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort. For the SAT, this isn't just a theory, it's a mathematical fact. 80% of your score gains will come from mastering a critical 20% of the content. What is that 20%? It's heart of algebra, problem solving and data analysis, and standard English conventions. If you laser focus on these 3 areas, you are targeting the highest yield material on the entire test. This is the secret to breaking out of your score plateau. It's not about studying harder, it's about studying smarter. It's about applying your effort where it will actually be rewarded. A free resource like Khan Academy gives you all the tools. It gives you the lumber, the nails, the pipes, and the paint. But it often leaves it up to you to figure out the blueprint. A great paid tutor or program acts as your architect and your foreman. They hand you the blueprint, circle the most important parts in red, and stand over your shoulder to make sure you're building the foundation first. They eliminate the guesswork and the wasted motion, focusing your energy with ruthless efficiency. So now we understand the what. We know the blueprint. We know the high-yield concepts that are the key to unlocking a higher score. But knowing the plan and executing the plan are 2 totally different worlds. How do you actually structure your day-to-day study to put this knowledge into practice? And when it all comes down to it, how do you make the final call for yourself, weighing your specific score goals against your specific budget? That is the final piece of the puzzle. Let's start with the Khan Academy Self-Starter. This is your blueprint. Your week is built around a cycle of diagnosis, learning, and practice. You don't just randomly do problems. You are the architect of your own improvement. Your week could look like this. Monday is Diagnosis Day. You take a time mini-section or a specific quiz on Khan Academy in an area you know is a weakness. You spend the rest of that session not just checking what you got wrong, but asking why. Was it a content gap? A careless error? Did you misread the question? You become a detective, and your wrong answers are the clues. Tuesday and Wednesday are for targeted attacks. Based on your Monday diagnosis, Khan Academy's algorithm will already be suggesting relevant videos and articles. You dedicate these 2 days to those specific skills. If you're struggling with words and context questions, you watch the videos, read the strategies, and then drill only words and context problems until the pattern clicks. You're not trying to boil the ocean. You're heating up 1 cup of water at a time. Thursday is for integration. You do a mixed practice set. This is crucial because the real SAT jumps between question types. This day tests if you can recall and apply the skills you sharpened on Tuesday, and Wednesday when they're mixed in with everything else. Friday is your mistake log day. You open a spreadsheet or a notebook and you manually write down every question you got wrong that week, the correct answer, and a short sentence explaining why you got it wrong, and what you'll do differently next time. This act of writing it down is neurologically powerful. It cements the learning. Saturday every 2 weeks is game day. You take a full-length timed official practice test under realistic conditions. No phone, no breaks, just you and the test for 3 hours. And Sunday? Sunday is the most important day of all. It's the autopsy. You spend 3 to 4 hours reviewing that Saturday test. Not just the wrong answers. You review questions you guessed on and got right. You review questions that took you way too long. You are dissecting the entire experience to plan your next 2 weeks of targeted attacks. That is the discipline required to make a free resource produce a premium result. Now let's look at the blueprint with the tutor. The dynamic flips. You are no longer the sole architect. You have a foreman who is an expert builder. Your job is execution. Before your first session, your tutor will have you take a full diagnostic test. They will analyze it with a level of detail you likely can't. They'll see patterns you don't. They won't just see you got a geometry question wrong. They'll see that you consistently make errors on problems involving inscribed angles, specifically when a diagram isn't provided. That's the level of granularity they provide. Your week is now structured around your sessions. Let's say you meet Tuesday and Thursday. Your homework for Tuesday isn't do some math problems. It's complete these 25 specific problems I've selected from the official practice book that all test your weakness with inscribed angles. And read this 1-page guide I wrote on the 3 main tricks the SAT uses for this concept. On Tuesday, you don't just review the homework. Your tutor asks you to explain your thought process on a problem you got wrong. They listen, and then they pinpoint the exact moment your logic went astray. They don't just give you the right path. They show you the pothole you fell into. Then they teach you the next concept, building brick by brick. Your homework for Thursday is to apply that new concept. Then in the Thursday session, you might do a timed practice section with them. They watch you work, they see where you slow down, they see which trap answers you hesitate on. This is like a professional athlete reviewing game tape with a coach. The feedback is immediate and hyper-specific. Your weekend practice test is still there, but the review is different. You send your results to your tutor, and they perform the deep analysis. They come to the next session with a new game plan, tailored to what that test revealed. You're still doing all the work, all the lifting, but every single exercise is the most efficient possible exercise you could be doing at that moment. You are outsourcing the entire strategic layer of your prep. So how do you choose? It comes down to answering 3 brutally honest questions about yourself. First, what is your score gap? Be specific. Take a real practice test and get your baseline score. Then look up the median SAT scores for the schools you're applying to. That's your target. The distance between those 2 numbers is your gap, and it's the single biggest indicator of what you need. If your gap is 50 to 100 points, Khan Academy is often more than enough. You don't have major content deficiencies. You need to clean up your approach, plug a few minor holes, and get more consistent. A self-guided, disciplined approach can absolutely get you there. If your gap is in the 100 to 200 point range, you're in the gray area. This is where a hybrid approach can shine, or where a highly motivated student can still succeed with Khan Academy alone, but the efficiency of a tutor starts to look very appealing. But if your gap is over 200 points, the calculus changes dramatically. A gap that large almost always implies significant, foundational misunderstandings in multiple areas. A tutor becomes a near necessity to diagnose and fix those deep-seated issues efficiently. Trying to bridge a 200-plus point gap alone is like trying to cross a canyon on a tightrope you're weaving as you go. A tutor provides the bridge. Second question. What is your learner profile? This is where self-awareness is everything. Are you a self-starter who is genuinely motivated by checking boxes and achieving goals you set for yourself? Do you have the discipline to follow that rigorous Khan Academy schedule we laid out, even on days you don't feel like it? If so, you are primed for success with free resources. But be honest. Do you thrive on external accountability? Does the fact that you're paying for something and have an appointment with a real person force you to do the work? Do you get frustrated when you hit a wall and tend to give up rather than digging deeper? If that's you, a tutor isn't a luxury. It's a critical piece of infrastructure for your success. Think of it like this. Khan Academy is a free, world-class gym membership. It has every machine and weight you could possibly need to get into amazing shape. A tutor is a personal trainer. The trainer doesn't lift the weights for you, but they make sure you show up, use the right form, push yourself harder than you would alone, and follow the most effective plan for your specific goals. Neither is inherently better, but they serve different needs. Claiming you'll go to the gym every day is easy. Actually doing it is another matter entirely. And the third and final question: what is your most constrained resource, time or money? For most people, the immediate answer is money. And if your budget is zero, the decision is made for you. The answer is Khan Academy, and you should pour every ounce of your energy into using it with the discipline we discussed. It is a gift, but for many families, the choice isn't quite so stark. And I want you to consider this. What is the value of your time? If you are a busy student with sports, a job, and a heavy course load, your time is incredibly valuable. A good tutor is an investment in efficiency. They can potentially help you achieve a 150-point increase in 30 hours of focus work that might have taken you 100 hours to achieve on your own through trial and error. You are paying to eliminate the guesswork, to cut a direct path through the forest instead of wandering around looking for one. In this light, the most expensive SAT prep is the prep that doesn't work, or the prep that takes so long you burn out or run out of time. So what's the ultimate verdict? For a huge number of students, the optimal path is a hybrid. It's the ultimate arbitrage of your resources. Start with Khan Academy. For 1 solid month, give it your all. Take 2 full practice tests. See how much you can improve on your own. You might surprise yourself and hit your goal score. So you just saved thousands of dollars. But if you hit a plateau, you now have incredibly valuable data. You can now approach a tutor not for a full expensive package but for a surgical strike. You can say, I've improved from a 1250 to a 1380 on my own, but for 3 straight tests I've been stuck. I consistently miss questions about pronoun antecedent agreement and quadratic equations. Can we do 5 sessions focused exclusively on mastering those skills? This is the smartest way to spend your money. You use the free resource to handle 80% of the journey, and you bring in a paid expert to guide you through that final, most difficult 20%. In the end, the debate between free and paid isn't about which one is better. It's a mirror. It forces you to define your goal, assess your strengths and weaknesses, be honest about your own discipline, and weigh the value of your time and money. The choice you make isn't just a study plan. It's your first major strategic decision in this whole college admissions process. Whether you choose the disciplined path of the self-starter or the guided efficiency of a coach, the power comes from making a conscious choice and committing to it. That ownership, that commitment, is what truly separates a good score from a great one. The journey to your goal score starts now. The question is, which path will you take?